No.
This one's Troy.
Yes.
Are you the oldest?
I'm the middle one.
You're the middle one?
Yeah, but I show him love and attention, and
My middle boy's the same way too, so I probably would have
I am
to like
the
say
mama's boy.
maybe Troy might be the youngest boy. Is more of a mama's boy.
And,
I see your chair section back there
okay, ready, we're ready.
Yes, sir.
at 7:30.
Bring it.
Hello. I'd like to welcome everybody to a joint meeting of your Morgan County Commissioners and your Morgan County Council. I am Vice Chair. Unfortunately, the Chair, Kenny Hales, I believe mother-in-law, passed away today, so he has left to be with his family. So as the Vice Chair, I'm stepping up to start us off. If you all stand, I'm going to have Mr. Adams lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm now going to turn it over to Councilwoman and Chair of the Council, Kim Meredith, to lead us in prayer.
Bow your heads with me, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to join together as a community, as leaders within our community, to make big decisions ahead for our community. We pray, Lord, for those that are in attendance, that we make our decisions for them and for the community around us, Lord. We pray that you join us this evening in letting us guide and direct in all that we do and the honor of this, Lord. And we just pray for this meeting and those in attendance. In your precious name we pray. Amen. We don't have too many joint meetings, so we got to kind of know who's on first here. So I am the president of the county council, and we'll let the record show that 6 of our 7 council members are in attendance this evening, and I will now turn this over to Chairman?
Brian.
Brian, there we
Turn it over
go.
to Brian. Again, I'd like to welcome everybody to what I think will be one of the most historic meetings since 1857. And if you'll go back and think for just a moment, in 1857, probably not in such a nice room, but there was a gathering of citizens of Morgan County that came together to start to formulate the opinions, the ideas, and the process to build what we now have as, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful courthouses in the state of Indiana. It was finished in 1859. Looking back, if I could go back in time, I would have told them in 1860 to start thinking about the next process. We've been working diligently on this for the last couple years, having several meetings, looking at ways to finance this, ways to not put the burden to where it's unattainable. But at the same time, we knew that we were running out of space. We know that we can sink a lot of money into that building over there and still not have a modern, functional courthouse. And I take that from one of the judges that said, no matter what the council can come up with, no matter what our architects design and what our legal and bond counsel can come and give to us, we're still not going to have a modern, functional courthouse. And that should be a concern to every citizen in here. What are we doing? What are we voting on with your tax dollars going forward? Not for next week, not for next year, but could you imagine this lasting 165 years? Probably not. The old saying is they don't build them like they used to. Maybe. But I promise you, we have put thought in this for the next 25, the next 50, the next 75 years. This is going to be a tie-in of what I passionately call this building, and I use sensitivity here because in 1996 they built this. This is our new building, and it is for all the mechanical things in it are ready to be replaced. The roof, we've had issues. We've had it settled. I could go on and on and on. This new building's ready for a major overhaul, let alone when you start looking at our courthouse. By a show of hands, who has gone through our courthouse in the last 12 months? So we've had several people in here. The courts are well represented today, and I'd like to thank all the judges and everyone coming. It's a beautiful building, but it is so dated. And for what we started on was trying to get an idea of what the judges need to be a more functional courthouse. Then we've also put pen and pencil to that. We've done called in some favors from classmates and offensive linemen that, what would this cost us? It's a lot of good tax dollars going into an old building that I'm passionate about. I was corrected several years ago. Give you a little history. I was on the council for 23 years, and I'm sorry you got my back.
I've always got your back.
When we go to vote, I hope you have my back again. But I was corrected as a young whippersnapper on here by an elderly gentleman that stated there'd be no way, because I found this courthouse and go somewhere else. And he said, absolutely not, over his dead body, was his exact words. People are very passionate about our center to the county seat. I love the old courthouse. I like the architect, I like the view, I like the yard, but it's not a functional courthouse anymore, and that's a problem. Plus, without saying, security is a major drive to a lot of what you're going to see tonight. Security is priority. Our employees and keeping them safe is a priority. With that said, people ask us, well, why don't you build it down by the jail and use that land? And I always thought that would be kind of neat, because at the time I was trying to get them to rename, I was going to be the Halls of Justice and the Legion of Doom over at the jail. But I'm a super friends, big hero. So through several meetings over several years, putting the minds of the judges, architects, financial pros, attorneys, opinions of council, opinions of commissioner, opinions of, we've gone out and looked at other courts, some recently built, some older ones. What you're going to see, citizens, tonight is the direction that the majority of us feel we need and have to go. To use your tax dollars wisely to invest not in today, not in tomorrow, but the next 25, 50, and 75 years. And with that, share with you through Mr. Ratt's presentation where we think we're heading.
Thank you very much, Brian. So I know a lot of the folks in here, but I am Eric Ratz, lifelong resident of Morgan County. In fact, Henry Ratz Jr. moved to what is now Morgan County before it was actually a county. So my family has been here the full 200 years that we have been a county consecutively. And I say that because I take this project very personal. This is something that I want to make sure that as a county resident that we are doing the right things for the right reasons. And this is a monumental decision, as Commissioner Collier talked about. 165 or plus years ago, had a very similar type of meeting to talk about what we're doing. So fast forward a little bit, and I just want to recap one thing. Back in December of 2020 in this room, we did a presentation of our study that we did across all of the different offices and departments within the county to see what the overall needs were of the county from a space point of view. And what that led into was what we call a work in progress. Some people may say that it's a master plan, but we're looking at this as a work in progress because it is continually, it's a fluid thing as we approach looking at this. So Brian talked about, and I won't go through all these again because he just talked about them, but we're talking about a multi-generational type of a building. This isn't something we're looking at for 25, even 50 years. This is something that is redefining how we approach our county government here in Morgan County. As we talked about, first and foremost, the driver behind this is looking at the security and safety of the buildings. 9/11 changed our lives forever. And with David Rogers and others of looking at the security at the courthouse, we need to look at that in all of our buildings. But it's much further in depth than that because it also gets very diligently involved in the overall courts. I just encourage any of you to go up to the second floor of the courthouse and just sit there and just watch a daily function of how things go on. Brian also talked about the renovations of the building. You know, this is a 26-year-old building. It's been maintained well. There's been money spent on it. But it's just kind of like I allude to in your car in the upper left-hand sticker, you have that little sticker that says, hey, I need to get an oil change. No matter what you do to that car, you still have to get the oil change. And at some point in time, we have to make upgrades to our buildings. One of the other things is right now we have this building, we have the courthouse, we have where the prosecutor and the reporter office, as well as the old J.C. Penney or the Toner building where Mr. Foley and probation is. We're trying to look at to see where we can consolidate the number of buildings into just a couple of buildings. Something that's very important is that our city, started with Mayor Costin, has spent a lot of effort to try and improve our downtown area. It looks wonderful. It's fantastic of all the improvements. And what we're trying to do is with the county building, with our campus here, is to also reflect back and connect to the downtown area. That's something we feel it's very important. And I think that first and foremost, as a taxpayer, I want to make sure that we're fiscally responsible in how we spend the monies, to make sure that we're spending the right dollars in the right ways to make things happen with that. So I'm going to walk through and just talk to you a little bit from a higher level point of view. Take all the questions that you want, but a little bit of higher point of view of what we're talking about. First is our schedule of what we're talking about moving forward. As first and foremost is the Justice Campus. And I'll talk a little bit about each one of these more in detail. But with the Justice Campus, it's a surface parking lot. Remember, months ago, we talked about a parking garage, but we have changed in the direction we believe that is a better approach is to look at a surface parking lot. A justice building. Yes, that means moving the courts out of the courthouse into a new justice building that's on the west side of what this city block here is connected to this building. And then also looking out here in the northeast part where Jackson and Main Street comes and looking at a bicentennial park, something that's reflective of our bicentennial that both the city of Martinsville and the county is going through at this point in time. Once we do this, we look at the historic courthouse, which is on the National Register, is to do a full renovation of that building. And that does mean a full renovation. You know, over the last several years, a couple decades, we've faced a lot of issues in that courthouse. And what we're trying to look at is to make sure that when we go in and renovate it, repurpose the building, that it is a full renovation from that perspective. And then lastly, the last part of the overall phase project is doing a renovation of this building, repurpose it for the court-related functions, offices, departments that would come into this building. So to dive into this a little deeper is to first off to look at the overall Justice Campus. And what I mean by the Justice Campus is that we're going from Main Street to the east, to the west, over to Marion Street, Jackson to Columbus, and looking at these two full city blocks from that perspective. West of Mulberry Street, through some property acquisitions, looking at doing a 184-car parking lot that is a surface parking that is across the street from Mulberry, okay? Then we're looking at the second phase of the project, of this phase. Second part of it is to do the Justice Building, and it's a two-level building just here to show you, and also some floor plans from that point of view. And then in the northeast corner where you can see is the Bicentennial Park. All of these things are fluid. We've got direction from multiple meetings of talking about some things in our workshops and things, but we still need to figure out all of the detail. This is the approach that we are proceeding at this point in time. And then lastly, the Justice Annex, or what most people would say would be this building and how that's renovated. So just a little bit more in detail with the overall parking lot. It's the property west of Mulberry Street. We're looking at 184 total parking spaces. And that includes 4 really at the front door of the Justice Building to make up the 184. Looking at 176 standard parking spaces. We then do have ADA compliant spaces and also potentially to look at some charging stations for electric vehicles. Just a couple of spaces just to kind of respond to how trends are going today in that direction. You know, this is a layout. It starts to show how we can lay out the space. Obviously, there's meetings with the city to make sure that we're going through all the Q's and T's with that, to make sure that we've got the right landscaping, the right types of islands, all those types of things, because we want to make sure as a good steward here in the community that we're doing the things for the right reasons. The Justice Building. This is an image looking at, if you go out to the stoplight out here at Main Street and Jackson Street, and you would look towards the building, this is what, at least an initial rendering from this perspective. This is the existing building. That's right here. This is the existing annex. This is the new judicial building with the new main entrance that would be here at this point. One of the reasons why for the main entrance of being where it is and why it's monumental like that is think of it for a lot of reasons. All of us have been throughout the majority of the counties here in Indiana, the 92 counties, and one of the things about it is, as Brian talked about, is the courthouse is always a signature building within the community. It's something that brings a sense of pride. Look at our county logo, okay? Look at the bicentennial logo. It's a capture of what we've done with the clock tower. Go out here at 44 and 69. What did we capture there? And also down on the south side of town is the clock tower as an image of Martinsville, of Morgan County. And it's one of the things that we're trying to look at here is have that same dignity of the courts, of the building of county government as we come into play with that. Overall floor plan, some big differences you would see in this building versus what your our existing courthouse is. One is one of the most fundamental things in courthouse design today is you must separate the circulation of the building. You have the public, and then you have the back side of the courts, which is for the jury, the inmates as they move, or the in custody inmates as they move in and out of court. So as what you would start to see is, and I'll walk you through this, is that is a very much a driver to that. To the left is to the north, so facing that way. Rotated just so that it fits on. But what we've created is a entrance point, a vestibule, and then what we've looked at right through here is to create something what we're calling Morgan Hall. That is something that is reflecting back upon the history of the last 200 years, but also then projecting towards the next 100 years. We've thought about a lot of pretty cool things that we can get some local artisans, some other people that would be involved to be able to create some space in there to reflect back on what our history's been, like most courthouses do, but then also moving forward. One of the drivers to this is that we want one security checkpoint. Anyone that comes into the courts building or into the Justice Annex building, every single person goes through one checkpoint for security. And working with David Rogers, that's just one thing that we keep saying, 1 point, not 2, not 3, 1 point checkpoint as everyone comes in. So when you would come into the building, and that was really the wall that you saw, the glass wall that you saw in the image, but you come into this and you come into a lobby space. At that point, you would either go into the courts, which is down here, or you would go into the top building, or this building, which is to the top of it. Once you get inside the courts, it's really broken up into really 3 different areas. And it's really a driver of the courts. We have in the light blue, I'll talk a little bit more specifically about it in a minute. You've got the light blue, the green, and the purple. Each one of those, there's 2 courts, and then there's a hearing or a magistrate with it. Same on the upper floor. So what you have is you have a corridor here that is specifically set up for the public. Small meeting areas, or small waiting areas, I should say, for different groups of people that as you're going into court. Some are for the defendant, and some are not. And you want to make sure that we've got different spaces that you can separate them as they're waiting going to the courts. So then we have one court that's orientated here with court administration next to it. We've got the public corridor, and then we've got the private corridor, or I would say the secure corridor. Off the secure corridor, they can go back here to the jury room. You've got the court administration staff that can work with the judge in the judge's chamber. All back here, unlike one judge that has to walk across the hallway from her courtroom into her jury chamber. So what we're trying to do is really something that is just honestly not possible in the existing courthouse. It's just not possible because back in 1857, when they built that through 1859, that was not something that was of the same importance. So we've looked at that very, very differently in courthouse designs today. So you've got the same makeup of the courts, the administration, and the jury, and the judges as you do in each one of these as you go down through. One other thing I want to point out very specifically is how we transport inmates from the jail to the courts. It's going to be something very different and something that you will see in most courthouses today, is that along Mulberry Street, we have a sally port. Think of it as a garage that Dave Rogers, Sheriff Myers, one of their folks can bring an inmate in a vehicle, open the overhead door, pull in, shut the door, then pull the inmate out of the vehicle, put them in a holding cell or a group holding with an elevator that's located right here that goes up to each one of the floors. Very different than all the TV news stories that we see of how they're transported today. It's going to be much more secure for both the staff as well as the inmates that are being transported back and forth to the jail. So that is one floor plan. The upper floor is very similar. Sorry. The second floor is very similar. The only difference is on the second floor is above the vehicle sally port. We have some storage rooms in the center, but we have the same 3 courtroom layouts on each floor. So there's 6 courtrooms. 4 courtrooms with the jury, and then there's 2 hearing rooms or magistrates with that. We have 5 currently. Why do we have another one? Because we have senior judges, such as Judge Gray, that can come in and to help out with the judges and their overall court load. And that's something that is planning for the future. It's something that we need to do as we look in advancing of that and with that design. So this is the first building project. What we do is we build this building, the courts move into this building. We temporarily relocate the clerk somewhere, as well as with the veterans. And then we can go in to renovate the overall courthouse. So another image, this is a little bit closer. This is really looking more from Main Street, from the parking lot that's just south of Jackson Street, looking towards the building. You can, again, see the main entrance to the right. This is the Morgan Hall area, then this is the existing building with the connections there. This is an image, if you would get above the stoplight, an aerial image. What we would say is that you're looking across the Bicentennial Park. You're looking, this is the Bicentennial Park area, and we're working on a lot of different design features of what might be able to be there. But it's something to connect the courthouse, the new Justice Building complex, to the downtown area. Something that we keep going back to is that we have to connect the two visually, but also create a space that is of the importance of what, as was talked about earlier, looking at the courthouse, looking at the green space, looking at the trees, looking at all the other things that go into that, is looking at something in that line for the Bicentennial Park. So then we go to the historic courthouse, again, opened in 1859 and has been added on to at least 5 times that I can see. And really not any major, there was something a few years ago, but nothing major until the mid-70s, late 70s, when the big expansion on the east side of the building was built. So on this, what we're doing is we are repurposing the courthouse, the historic courthouse. And by repurposing it, we have to change some walls on the interior. You know, we want to minimize, especially in the older part of load-bearing walls, but in the new part, 1970s, walls such that we can completely redo that. One of the other things is we're looking at room for growth, is that as we make this move back into the courthouse being an administrative spaces, is we want to make growth for each one of the offices or departments that go into that. Talked about earlier, the building system upgrades, the HVAC, the plumbing, the electrical, all those things really need to be start over, and let's get them done right from that point of view. Also talked about potential looking at the roof, looking at repairs on the exterior of the building. So this is a complete renovation of the building such that we can take our landmark, our signature building in our community, and make it last for several more generations to come. One of the things that we're looking at to see how we can balance it is there may need to be a small addition to the building. And I've talked about a little bit is where at the historic integrity of the building, the appearance of it, but something that can be for a point, public restrooms that are fully compliant, as well as an elevator and a new stair from that perspective as well. And then we will make sure the building throughout the renovation that it is completely code compliant throughout. Second, and just at the first floor of the building, you can start to see some of the different spaces. The recorder is more where Judge Williams' courtroom is today. The treasurer's located maybe where the clerk is. And then the auditor would be, in essence, where the prosecutor formerly was. And then there's some other spaces in there. On the second floor of the building, you know, the one space inside the building that probably has the most historic significance, maybe but just because of what it is the large courtroom that's on the west side. So we looked at that, maintaining that space and changing it into a meeting or something like this. The council would meet. That seemed to be the most appropriate use for that space in the building. Then you can start to see where we have some of the other ones, whether it's the veterans, the Board of Health, the surveyor, assessor, and planning, some of those spaces building. Again, we're working on, once we get to that point, we'll work on the finite of the room layouts and the space adjacencies, but square footage-wise, that's where we're looking at time. We've got a very small third floor. Some people probably don't even realize it. We do have a very small third floor that used to be a balcony for the large courtroom, but then there's a mechanical room that's up there, and we're looking at that to be more for storage, IT, and just for mechanical. And then down in the lower level, potentially increasing some space for mechanical, but also then to look at staff, break room, and possibly a storage room in the lower level. So we built the Justice Building, moved the courts, renovated the courthouse, moved this building to the courthouse, then that leaves this building ready to be renovated. So that's the administrative annex renovation, and what we're looking at is, again, we're in this room right here. The main entrance is out that way, which is also right here at this point. So in this building, what we're looking at is the court-related functions, such as the clerk with the elections board, but also looking at probation on the first level. That's where the highest volume of people that are going to come into the building, that's where they're going to be. And so then what we would do is, on the upper levels, to look at that more for prosecutor and the Title 8. Okay, so people that are going after that space, much less volume than on the first floor, but we need to make sure that everyone has the right amount of space. Likely going to look at maybe 2/3 of this room, having a second floor in, because if we're going to add square footage inside the building, we need to do it now. And we'll see how it works out long term if we have to do that, need to do that, or if it is just the right decision to do it now instead of trying to do it later from that point of view. Again, this building would be renovated. All the mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems in the building would be upgraded, IT, as well as general finishes to meet what the new needs for the overall building from that perspective. Lower level is going to be storage and mechanical and IT. So for all the folks that have spent years working in the basement here, the plan is, moving forward, is that no one would be proposed to be working in the basement anymore of this building. We need the storage, but that's something that we're looking at long-term, what would be the best solution from that point of view. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick, and you can talk about some cost. Patrick Davis from Meyer Najum.
Thank you, Eric. As he said, I'm Patrick Davis with Meyer Najum. I've been developing and maintaining the budgetary information kind of since almost the last 2 years, much like yourself. So what we talked through one of the last times we were together was what's called BOT1, the BOT. That's the delivery process within the Indiana State Code for how to deliver a construction project like this and provide the financing as a part of it. So a big part of that is that it provides the financing with that, which we'll get into in a moment. Tonight, we're here to talk about BOT 2, which is that second phase. So we've already gotten approval for BOT 1 last year, which we've moved forward with the design of the new parking lot, as well as the square footage and space at the East Annex, which is out adjacent to the fairgrounds, to move some of the functions from this building out because of overcrowding that you're experiencing now. So the BOT 2 is inclusive of the Justice expansion out in the parking lot here, as well as the Bicentennial Park. So it would be the completion of this city block, but maintaining the functions that are in here now prior to those relocating as a part of BOT 3, which is a future phase. We're here tonight discussing the BOT 2, that next step to, discuss what the, ramifications of that are cost-wise. So we've put together detailed costs that we've gone through of what the facade materials are, what the glazing's made up of, what the spaces are on the inside, even what the finishes are with Eric and the team's help, and we've analyzed those costs. And there's going to be additional time to continue analyzing those costs and continue looking at any cost savings ideas that are available. So we haven't completely vetted those out yet, but we're going to analyze those each step of the way. Eric and I have already been talking about ways that we might be able to reduce some of the square footage of this building as we study it even further. So always looking at ways to reduce those costs as a part of that process. So that'll be ongoing as we continue.
So the last thing I'd like to say is, before we turn it over to Jason, is, this has been a very interesting process. There's been a lot of different meetings. To be honest, the judges have been very extensively involved. As been pointed out, we went and toured facilities to see what other people are doing, to see what we don't want, to see what we do want from other facilities, and I encourage them and others to do that same thing throughout the process. There's been a lot of meetings to talk about some very specific things and to talk about some general things. So with that, I think it's important to note that, this is a work in progress. This is something that we're looking for many generations to come of what they can see as some of the planning that, the commissioners, the council, the judge, office holders, all the departments, let alone other people, all the efforts that are going into this to make this something that we all should be very proud of once we're done.
As Eric's getting my PowerPoint presentation put together, my name is Jason Semler with Baker Tilly. I serve as the financial advisor for the county, and we serve counties throughout the state of Indiana for various projects like this, municipal buildings with county annex buildings, courthouses, jails. So this is what I've done for 20 plus years. And I'm going to be talking about the potential financing. These are kind of illustrations. Nothing has been decided by the county. These are just kind of potential ways to fund these projects that have been discussed. And for county government, really all government, but specifically county government, the county government's very limited in what revenues are available to fund projects like this. It's really either through property taxes or income taxes or a combination of the two. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. hopefully.
Here it comes.
She's getting ready for you to take us to Florida.
She wishes.
Are you guys, do you have a trip planned?
They're going this year with us too, when we all go with our big group, because Danielle and Ryan couldn't use their condo this year, because they got,
Bob's.
no, they always get.
So this might be a good time to interject while they get that up and going. And as I look around the room, I'm amazed that I know 98% of you. So you have to be, I know my family's sitting there, and I know my friends out here have to be sitting there saying, how were you smart enough to do this? And I'm not. I'm not. What we've done is we've brought in experts, and this is what they do all over the place. And they bring their guidance to us, and then we work as a team. What we'll be doing after his slideshow and presentation, to kind of put you in the loop of our outline, due to open door laws, Keith will like this. This is really the first time as a whole, the council and the commissioners have gotten together to discuss this. They will have concerns. Their concerns will become the commissioners' concerns. And so we will turn this over here in a few, and we will discuss the direction that we want the work in progress to go. And then after we talk about that, we'll call upon anybody from the audience, maybe the sheriff, maybe Commander Rogers on security issues, some of the judges. We'll have people from the public come up and talk about it. And then the ultimate goal tonight is for the commissioners to take action, to affirm, to proceed. Likewise, then I will turn it over to Madam Chairperson to get her body to affirm, to proceed. And upon that, the work in progress shall continue. Are we ready?
So this is just another summary of the construction costs that was just went over. So we've put together, again, the different bots. The first one's the 2002 GEO bonds, the bot one. Those bonds are actually closing this week. Again, that project's already been approved. We sold bonds, and again, that money will be available here later this week to start the bot one projects. The bot two, the judicial center. Talking about everything, if the project goes forward, we're talking about at earliest, maybe potentially later this year, that it could get started. So for illustration, we're showing that bonds could be issued and closed this year with hopefully potential construction next spring. So that's looking about $24.5 million, as mentioned. With the bond issuance cost, you're looking at a bond issue of close to $25 million. With the historic courthouse, again, with the project of about $19.5 million, you're looking at a bond for 19.8. And then for the East Annex, again, a project about 12.5 million, so you're looking at a total bond issue of about 13.7. And I mentioned bond issue, that is typically for projects this size. Again, most counties don't have, $20 million sitting aside in cash accounts. So financing, just like you would finance your house through a mortgage, counties finance large projects like this through a bond issue, where they go out and find a institution that's willing to buy bonds, provide cash to the county, and then form a payment over a certain period of time. Usually that time is anywhere from 10 to 20 years. So as I mentioned, counties are very limited in the amount of revenue that they can generate and pay for projects like this. Again, we talked about either through property taxes or income taxes. The 2022 general obligation bonds that were issued and approved earlier this year that we just closed upon, those are anticipated to be paid from property taxes. So we're looking at about a 5-cent tax rate, a new tax rate levied on all the taxpayers in the county. Here we've just showed what the potential impact that means to a homeowner in Morgan County. So if you have a house that has a gross assessed value of $100,000, the additional property taxes that person would pay be $11 per year. Average home in Morgan County is about $160,000. That equates to about a $24, almost $25 increase in property taxes per year. And then we also showed a commercial property and 100 acres of agricultural land. Now, if the next three bots, bot 2, 3, and 4, were also payable from property taxes, you can see bot 2, that would add an additional 5 cents to the property tax rate. Bot 3, 4 cents, and then bot 4, additional about 3 cents. So if all 4 projects are payable from 100% of property taxes, you would see about a 17-cent increase in your property tax rate each year. So again, for an average home in Morgan County, that's about a little over $83 a year in increased property taxes per year. And this just kind of shows the graph I put together, again, looking at all 4 projects, how over time that increase, that 17-cent increase, doesn't happen all at once. Because I failed to mention, but these other projects, again, this is for illustration, depends how quickly projects can be done, but we're looking at the judicial center, potentially later this year, early next year. The courthouse wouldn't be started until around 2024, and the East Annex building wouldn't be finished till the courthouse was done. So you're looking at 2026, 2027. So because of the delay in project, you can see that the tax rate's going to increase over time. This is assuming that the tax base of the county stays the same. And we've seen historically, Morgan County, has historically grown. We're anticipating it to grow much quicker in the future, which is one of the reasons that we want to try to get these projects and try to get them started now. So I feel like this is a very conservative impact, because again, this is assuming there's no growth for 20 years, 24 years. So really, I think the impact is going to be much less than 17 cents, because as the tax base increases in the county, the impact of the taxpayers will be less. And as I mentioned, not only can you pay for bond issue through property taxes, but income taxes. And one of the things that the county is looking at is current income taxes that it collects, ways of reallocating that revenue stream that it receives and being able to apply some of that towards the bond payment. So here we showed an illustration. If instead of bot 2, the current project that we're talking about, if we didn't pay through that through property taxes, but through income taxes, there would be no increase in property tax rates. It'd all be based or paid from income taxes that the community is currently paying and the county is currently receiving. So there's no increase in income taxes being discussed. Again, just being paid from what's currently there. And that annual payment's a little $2,040,000. So as you can see, if you eliminate that project being paid from property taxes, now the impact in property taxes is at 17 cents, it's more like 12 cents. So on an average house, instead of being $84 impact a year, it's about $58. And again, that 12-cent increase that we're talking about, again, that would not happen overnight. It would be a gradual increase. And again, this is assuming that the tax assessed value does not increase, for the next 24 years. Again, this is just kind of an illustration of what we're talking about right now, is ways that the projects could be paid and kind of what we're talking about internally.
Thank you, Jason. So as you can see, we've expanded outside the box on looking at alternative funding mechanisms. We're still researching that. It is a work in progress. And I always like to put it down into layman's terms. The average home in Morgan County is at $160,700. If I had the green light from my council to do all these projects all at once, you're looking at roughly, on an average home, $7 to $5 a month additional tax to address all our security. And here's the problem. Let's be honest with each other. Some of these projects should have been started 20 years ago, 30 years ago. We've waited and waited, and now our conservative has gotten us into trouble. I would argue now, hindsight's 2020, we've been too conservative for too long. But I'd like to point out, when we're talking financials and funding, had the unique opportunity as your commissioner to sit in with the Standard & Poor's to get our rating. And I am very proud. I'm proud of the council. I'm proud of our commissioners. I'm proud of our taxpayers. We got a AA negative rating. The only way you get AAA is you have to buy insurance, which is an additional cost. We're not going to go belly up on that. When we go to sell those bonds, they know we're not going to belly up on that. Which, if I start speaking out, the one guy who hasn't said anything yet sitting over here, he's legal counsel. So if he starts talking, I'll have to shut up. But with a AA negative rating, there's some of the things that they said about us. The AA negative also reflects the county's growth potential given proximity to the broad and diverse Indianapolis metropolitan statistical area, Bloomington, which is home of Indiana University. We know that, but when you send our tax-free bonds out to the market, someone in Montana may not know that. They go on to talk about how we are structurally balanced in our operations with additional budgetary flexibility from very strong reserves. I'm proud of those reserves, but I think those reserves have kind of got us in the pickle that we're in this evening. We've had adequate management controls and a strong institutional framework, very strong debt and liabilities profile. If you go on through the report, we didn't hide anything from Standard & Poor's because we didn't want, well, because we had legal counsel and they wouldn't let us hide anything. We told them on that first bond issue that we were looking at multiple projects and possibly an additional, we threw out the figure $50 million. Now, I did that intentionally with their backing because I wanted somebody from outside that could care less sit there and go, oh no, you guys can't do that. You'll strap yourself, you'll break yourself. We're not gonna, and that would be reflected if they thought that in our bond rating. Am I correct, sir? So I think it's important to note to the taxpayers and the citizens of Morgan County, we have been tight with your money. We have strong ratings, we have good cash flow, and we can handle this, just like I think the citizens can handle a $5 to $7 increase for these projects. At this time, I think it would behoove us to turn it back over to council members. Where'd Don go? My fellow commissioner. And we'll discuss some of the concerns that you might have. And I'll just throw out, my concern and the reason why I'm willing to do all this is I don't think it's cost efficient to sink $43 to $46 million in the existing courthouse to bring it up to grade, only to still have a non-modern functional courthouse. I don't think that's a wise use of taxpayer dollars. And with that, I'll throw it back to the council.
You mentioned in your conversation here that, or your presentation, asking if we had toured the courthouse. And as a council member, I did take part in Morgan County Leadership Academy, and we did tour the courthouse. And I was pretty appalled. I mean, I go by at Christmas time and I see the lights on that beautiful courthouse, and I think, oh, it's so beautiful on the outside. It must be just that beautiful on the inside. But I wasn't one that used it much, thankfully, in my years of being a resident in this county. But as a person that toured it, I can tell you, it is not operational in a modern-day court system by today's standards. I mean, you have folks that are having to meet the other family of maybe who you're going to court against in the hallway and sit in the same chairs next to them, and it's just, it is not a workable building and usable in that capacity any longer. It is past its prime. So I just wanted to say that. Maybe some of you take an opportunity to peek your head in and take a look at it. I hand it over to my fellow council members for any comments.
I can say that I personally worked in that building a number of years. Judge Gray's office was directly above mine when I served as your county clerk. It was a situation where you could send a man to the moon, but you couldn't get the heating and air conditioning adjusted in that building. There's still remains old plumbing, old wiring, things drip, things are nasty. The bathrooms, there's a lot of ADA issues over there. It's outgrown its time.
I know I haven't spent a lot of time there, but the time that I have spent, it's, like the ladies have said, it's beautiful on the outside. These guys work in it every day. I mean, they absolutely do. And to go to a place of work where you don't have Wi-Fi, you don't have the appropriate tools to do your job, it's not fair to them. Second item, and my dear friend David Rogers back there will attest to this, in the fact that security in a facility like that has to be key. It has to be. I know for a fact that if I'm over there for a situation of any sort of nature, that I don't want to be in the same hallway with somebody that I'm afraid of what they've done, what they're capable of doing, and so on and so forth. A lot of effort has gone into the blueprints and drawings of what you just seen on that overhead there. And one of the main factors is security, and it's security of all folks involved. And Brian hit it right on the nail head that, you know, we are conservative. We absolutely are, and that's a good thing. However, we've come to a point to where change has to be made, and this is a stair-step event. This is a work in progress, like they've said. But it's important we have a starting point from somewhere, and this is where it's at.
Like my fellow councilman, I agree that our courthouse is severely lacking in keeping our employees safe, in keeping our employees in a safe, working, and clean environment. I have no desire to work there myself, so I wouldn't want our employees to work there. Definitely, something needs to be done. There is no dispute about that. But as Commissioner Collier stated, these projects should have started 15 years ago. And that's the leadership of this county's fault for not doing that. I would have felt a lot better in a different economic time. We are probably starting these projects at where I think we all feel as gas hit $5.25 today in this city, at the worst possible economic time, which causes me severe reservation for the citizens of our county that are middle and low income, that will feel the brunt of this even more than they would have 15 years ago. So while I agree that something needs to be done and a project needs to be done, I do wish that the scope of the project could be scaled back so that it wasn't so extensive in cost. But I don't dispute that something needs to be done.
Kelly pretty much said a lot of what I was thinking on this. Something needs to be done. I mean, I don't think anybody here doesn't think that is the case. As far as me being up here on this council, the thing I gotta look at are the things with the dollar signs. And, you know, that's a cost that's gonna go to the taxpayers. And I have to be able to look them square in the eye and when we're in town eating somewhere and explain to them why their property taxes went up. I guess the one thing was the $160,000 is the average house. I don't know anyone who has a house hardly that's only $160,000. That's a lot more than that. Property taxes seem to go up every year, it seems, and then everyone just got their new property taxes and saw how much it had gone up. But like Kelly said, I mean, with inflation stuff, this is the worst time I think this could ever get started. But it has to be done, I believe. So I'd like to know a little, this is the first time I've ever seen numbers, was tonight. So to all of you out there, this isn't like I've had this for weeks looking at it. This is the first time I've seen it. And I don't care who you are. If someone hands you something that has numbers like 24 million on it, I don't think you can wrap your head around it right then and there. And that's a big number just for the one project. And I don't see how, I mean, I know they're in the bot 2, bot 3, bot 4, but we can't do just bot 2. If we're doing it, we're going to have to do all of it. So it's more of me having to get my head around these numbers and being able to tell the voters and the taxpayers, hey, this is a good thing. This is a good thing. Don't worry about it because it's their hard-earned money. And I don't know if there's, I mean, as far as drawings, this is the first time I've seen any of them. So, but something definitely needs to be done. That courthouse is no longer a good courthouse.
I think it's a beautiful courthouse, and I think it's an historic building. And I love that we are going to take a building that means so much to this community, a 163-year-old building, and we're not going to raise it, we're not going to knock it down. We're going to make it functional. And I had the pleasure of going through every single room in that courthouse from the lower level all the way up to that 3rd story. And I haven't been in that courthouse probably since the mid-1980s when I needed a copy of my birth certificate. And I was astounded at what I saw. I was actually very sad about what I saw. There are rooms that are blocked off because they are dangerous to be in. There are rooms that you can't go in because of the leaks and the damage done by just years of use. So that's why the prosecutor isn't even there, is because of the leaks. And we have to do something, and I want to see her restored. And I agree, that's a lot of money. That kind of money scares me. But I have to think about what I would do for my own home, right? And I'm actually doing stuff at my own home right now because I don't think the prices are going to get any better. I don't think the price of labor and materials is going to get any better. And we have outgrown it. It's not a matter of, oh, Morgan County needs a pretty courthouse. It's a matter of Morgan County needs functional space. And we are more than doubling the courthouse space based on these plans. We have outgrown it. And it's not safe. And yes, the money scares me too. And my home value is over $160,000. And I know gas costs more and groceries cost more. Everything costs more. But I don't know if you guys think it's going to get any better. We do have to do something. And we need functional space. And, you know, I hope we do it the right way. And I hope whatever we do lasts another 170 years. Because, I mean, this is historical right now. And so I know everyone's worried about the money, but I would urge you to go have a look for yourself. And, you know, our commissioners, I mean, they've worked really hard on these projects, and it's been over a lot of time. So, you know, we're not taking this lightly. It's my money too, and I know everyone's worried about it, and we are too, but we have to do something.
Testing. Don, I've never known a politician not to say something.
I've never known
Say
Don not to have something to say.
I'm probably one of the longest of tooth in here. And, okay, I'll be careful, Judge. In fact, I want to hear the judge's comments, but I will say I visited the courthouse when my grandfather was an auditor over there. And that was where the auditor's office was. And that was in 1953. I think people that have been in that courthouse back with my grandfather and back today have this strong feeling of it's time. You know, we have to make a move. We've gone past the time. We've kicked the can. And you can't keep kicking the can. You got to step up. This town, this community, this county is on the verge of, I think, one of the biggest growth spurts we'll ever see. And that's going to help. It will hurt if they keep saying, "Oh, they're not interested in themselves. They're not interested. Let's find someplace else to go." They're going to come to this county. This is an initiative that's going to lead to a brighter future that we're looking at. And I'm excited to be a part of it because I see, I don't know, it's a feeling of we can do it. We can step up and get the job done. And that's team. I love it.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to reiterate that and to address some of your concerns. The scale, I get it. With our non-biased outside. Jason, the 160,700, where did you pull that figure? Okay. Patrick, I've been in enough meetings with you to know that you've done this for 23 years. How often, when you see the supply chain and the inflation that we have in building materials, historical, over a 100-year period, did it pull back? And if they do, how much?
Yeah, so I can probably speak without it. The biggest change that I've seen to the negative where costs have actually dropped were in 2008 and 2009, and that was kind of an unprecedented time. The dip was for about 2 years, but came back. And kind of, if you look at that, you know, we track commodity costs because it's what we have to know. You know, it's our craft to know what things are costing and know where wood prices are, steel prices, drywall prices, and understand those things. Brian had said before, Melissa had said before, labor costs do keep going up. So labor costs will go up over time. It's just cost of living increases. It's exactly what we're seeing. Those cost of living increases will bleed through everything else, which is a good thing. People need cost of living increases for obvious reasons. But, you know, commodities and everything, there's a lot of fluctuation, but general across the board, seen, you know, an escalation over time that doesn't come back. I had mentioned the other day, we had, you know, projects 3 years ago at the start of the pandemic saying we should put this on hold and wait because prices are going up. Would have been the wrong decision. You know, usually it's right to start moving on those things, you know, historically whenever you can. I've only seen the one blip, and it was only temporary in nature, and that hurt pretty much all of us, you know, through that process.
Thank you. And so to answer that and the supply cost and that one historical small blip, I personally feel that the risk of rising interest rates outstrips the delay in the project, hoping that supply costs come back down. I'm also fearful that in the in-between time, we could have some legal actions that would play our cards and there'd be no decision for us to make whatsoever except where to sign. And again, back to the audience, what we're looking for tonight is that we get on the same page on this work in progress and we all vote to move forward. We affirm going forward. Doesn't mean that we're affirming the specifics, anything specific, but the broad project moving forward. Any other comments from council?
just want to thank Judges Foley, Dungan, Williams, and Judge Gray, and Tammy McClary, who spend hours and hours every week in that building, for being here tonight and showing your allegiance towards this project.
Now, we'll open it up to everyone and anyone, but there's judges here, and there's Mr. Rogers and the sheriff. You would care to make a comment? Judge Gray?
I've been in that courthouse 50 years, 5 months, and 6 days.
I think,
But who's counting?
I got you. I was there today, down in the basement, farting the radon. These employees deserve a hell of a lot more than you give them credit for or you give them dollars for. And Vicki and I have fought that for 50 years. When I started here, population of Morgan County was 30,000. It's now 70,000. I just punched it up. I don't know about Mooresville. I see a lot of planning commission developments going on. In Martinsville, it looks like we have a potential of 600 lots going on in the next 5 years, right, Mayor? And what we got in Mooresville? 1,000? 1,000 lots. What Eric is proposing today will be full in 5 years. You will have no expansion. I see no room in the layout of the grounds to put another 3 courtrooms. Johnson County has 6 judges, 2 magistrates, and a hearing room. Hendricks County has 6 judges, 2 magistrates, and a hearing room. Where is that in that? Where is the expansion? You don't have it. In 1972, when Thelma Gray started talking about expanding the courthouse, we had 2 courts. Circuit Court, John Sedgwick, Superior Court, Noble Littell. And she had a vision. We are gonna need another courtroom. When we walked in March of 1976, we filled it up. There was no room to expand. I think it's short-sightedness to develop that plan now, because it's not going to be workable for your kids, your grandkids. Eric's kids are not going to have enough room to have justice served in Morgan County. If you're talking about a building to last for 50 years, this is not it. If you're talking about the administration building, the now courthouse, being sufficient in 25 years, it's not going to be. You're leaving no room for expansion. The meeting room on the 2nd floor, I've always said, is a beautiful room. It was the circuit court originally built. Has a beautiful rose window, if any of you have noticed that. That ought to be given to the Merrimack players. Let's have it as a community room. Let's put the Red Cross, the Chamber of Commerce, whatever else in there. You're going to have to find a place for the administration, because you're not going to have enough space in 25 years. It's not going to be there. I've seen it. I grew up with it. I remember in 1972 walking up this rickety old stairway with a chair rail just wiggled back and forth. It gave a 2-foot expansion. We couldn't get up. We didn't have an elevator. It didn't work. What they built worked, but there was no room for expansion. Again, you've got the same thing. When you talk about the realistic value of houses, Keith's paper put in the article last week. For the last year, the average sale of house in Morgan County was $299,000. It's not $160,000. I live in an addition where a house just sold that has 2,200 square feet and a two-car garage for $450,000. That's what we've got. That's where we're going. The additions they're putting out in the south side of Martinsville, we're talking about $275 to $350 for houses, for new houses. I was never talked to by Eric Ratz or Don Adams or Brian Collier when this planning went on, because I'm the historian of Morgan County. Vicki knows that. I've been here. I've got stories that make Don Adams grow hair again. I know that jurors don't have enough room. If you've been in all of the rooms in the courthouse, Morgan Superior Court 1, I dare you to bring 13 of your friends to that jury room and sit in there. There aren't even 14 chairs in Brian Williams' jury room. Circuit does have enough room. I'll agree to you there. Judge Duncan's jury room barely fits it. We had 16 jurors for the Stephen Judy trial, and we had to have people sitting out in the hallway as jurors. It's not sufficient. What Bloomington has right now tries to be efficient, and Eric has taken a lot of what they have down there, the separation of jurors, court staff, that needs to be done. There's no question about it. I just bring this to your thought because that's what's going to happen when our grandkids need a courthouse.
So you bring up a really good point. How many active courts are there right now at the courthouse?
5.
There are 5, and we are showing on this plan 6.
In 5 years, you'll have another magistrate that will take a courtroom.
And you
As
think
a
that's
minimum.
based on population growth?
Yes. What happens, what's historically happening right now, well, historically what happened, every time I couldn't get Richard Bray's cases in soon enough, he gave us another court. Didn't he? But now the legislature has calmed down on that and slowed down. But with the population that Martinsville and Mooresville has got, that brings more cases. We've got more divorces. We got more traffic stops. We got more drunk drivers. We got more crime. It just happens. With that, the courts are going to get overloaded in the next 5 to 7 years. Whoever is legislators, Peggy and Rod are still there, whoever their successors are, we're going to be forced to have at least a magistrate, if not a full-time judge. That's the way the legislature is going right now. They're going in increments. So the magistrate is going to have some place to sit when this courthouse opens up. And that'll be number 6. And there won't be a hearing room for guys like me who come in to do special judge or help out the courts. When Pete Foley has a 3-week jury trial, he's doing one case. I can come in and sit in a second room and do 25 cases a day for him and keep his docket going. But I can't if there's no room, like there is not room now.
So on any given day, all 5 courts are busy, like they're in use, like five days a week, 4 days a week, all the courts are busy?
Every court has a schedule almost every day. You've got vacations, you've got continuances, and a day will go down. But to plan for it, I've got Tammy McClary's Pete's calendar out to at least August, if not September, and jury trials farther than that. This is where I see we've got problems.
But
we went through this in '72. We thought, oh, God, Morgan County is going to have another court. It'll last us forever. Well, it lasted us for about 6 years until we had to have a commissioner down in the basement, Chris Burnham. And we only doubled, when we only moved possibly 35, 40,000 people in 50 years. What's your population going to move in the next 50 years? You know, we're the last county to grow. We always have been historically. Mooresville has got a lot of nice flat ground. Martinsville doesn't have much flat ground. So the growth's going to be up north, but they're all going to be in Morgan County, and they're going to need a court.
Or two.
Or 3.
Or this building becomes a court.
You know, the way it looks, it's a beautiful looking building, but there's no room for expansion. You can't go into the parking lot because you got a parking lot. You got bicentennial, whatever. There's no room.
Any other judges currently?
Thank you. I'm Pete Foley, Morgan Superior Court 1. You know, I'm following Judge Gray, who I have followed in Superior Court 1. He was my predecessor. I've been there since 2015. As the comments came around the room from the council members, what I discerned was a consensus of need. That's a big hurdle. It's not where we've been in any recent time, have a consensus of need. So what do you do if you have a consensus of need? And my thoughts turn to the comment of Commissioner Collier, I think, was if you agree on the need in the improvements, if you don't look to new structure, what do? You invest a lot of money, $43 to $46 million, I think was the estimate, into the existing structure. Maybe you expand a little bit of the footprint, but you're not going to get much. And then where are you? And what have you done? The proposal that is presented to you tonight, I'm very passionate about this. I was county attorney for 14 years, been on the bench for 7.5 years. So I've been sitting in through meetings like this for quite some time. And we have a convergence with our current constitution of these bodies of folks that are looking forward and looking for solutions that are long-term and no longer Band-Aids. And what you have is an opportunity to reorder the physical plant of the county with respect to these administrative offices and the judicial offices in a way that will set up a campus for those functions for the next 100 years or more. Because the problem that Judge Gray speaks to is real. What you battle is expense and cost. Governments have a very difficult time building in excess space. The financial presentation was about, well, you don't have a savings account that has millions of dollars in it. Why? Because the whole system isn't geared to create that. You are geared to tax what you need. You can't build that up. And when you build buildings, you suffer from some of the same problems that you wouldn't do in the private sector. So, this allows us to maintain these buildings, maintain this presence in Martinsville, be an anchor to the courthouse square, as Commissioner or Councilmember Green mentioned, preserve that beautiful centerpiece building in a way that's functional, in a way that will be cared for and maintained, and reorder these things for the future. The plaza and the other aspects of this anchor kind of that corner of the courthouse. So what is it, the southwest side. On the northeast side, Mayor Costin and his team are putting together the amphitheater and the other things. They've got plans and visions for Jefferson Street and other areas around the courthouse. They're further going to limit your expansion of that building and parking and all those other things go with it. So this has an ability to put that anchor and put the county judicial and administrative functions in a place where they can be under one roof, be in one campus for quite some time to come. Otherwise, you're going to office in different buildings. And we're going to move back to where we are with functions in the Toner Building and the Reporter Building. He mentioned 1973, 1976. In the archives of Superior Court 1, I've got the planning study that was done in advance of that courthouse expansion. It's as if we traveled back in time to repeat exactly what happened. Their conversations are our conversations. The numbers are a little different, the dollar amounts are different, but their exact conversations are our conversations today. So they expanded. And they did a heck of a job in doing what they did, but in comparison, they spaced that for court staff of a whopping total of 5 persons when they went through that planning process. 5 court employees. We've got 17 now. We're in that same footprint. They looked at expansion of 15,000 square feet for $875,000. Our replacement of 27,000 square feet for $1.14 million. Folks, that was less than 50 years ago. And now we're looking at, for courts only, and that was the total of all the courthouse, courts only at 46,600 square feet. So you can tell that the longevity of that space being adequate is not very far in the future. And you'll wrestle with those ideas. You'll wrestle with the finances and figure out that. Judge Gray's absolutely right, that that space will be maybe not inadequate, but limited much sooner than we think. But we can go a long way to ordering things in a way that we can expand and we can handle those things, and we can do it not in a piecemeal way. And we can do it the right way and set a foundation for that growth to occur in a place where it should, where it's ordered, where it's natural, and not spread out and piecemeal. So, I'm not going to steal everybody, you know, we've already had a lot of time with the idea that their need exists. I think your questions have to turn to, then how do we solve the problem? And do we solve it by spending 80% or 70% of the money for a new space, or do we turn that and say, listen, at that range, the tipping point's been reached and we build new and we reorder the space in a long-term direction? That folks 50 years from now will look back at us, and this may be a little bit shinier and it'll probably be in digital format, but they'll look back at it in a way that they'll giggle and think it's quaint at the problems or the dollar amounts we wrestled with versus the decision we have to make. And I think that's what you, at least what I want you to look at. And I don't care. My space is my space. I don't care. I'm not in it for creature comforts. But when I have jurors who don't feel safe and comfortable in an environment that they're plucked out of it's not quite the hand of God, but it's close, comes out and grabs them and says, you're going to be in Superior Court 1 next week. And they have to go out. And we had a 2-week jury trial. We tried it in Sarah's court because my room's not big enough. And when we would have a break, before we have a break, if any of you have ever been to a jury trial, you're admonished and given the scare that a judge can put in you to not talk, look at, make a face at, or have any interaction with anybody else that's involved in the trial. Witnesses, lawyers, parties, press, anything. And then 15-minute break, we got to go back in. Everybody's in the hallway. We're bumping shoulders, mixing through. I'm coming through in my robe with my notebooks. Bumping shoulders with a juror, bumping shoulders with a victim's family, with the defendant's family, with law enforcement. And you're all congregating through the same hallway. They were uncomfortable with that. They're owed better. Our staff is owed better. I mean, if you want anecdotal instances, the idea of a secure hallway and a public hallway. Think you've got an adoption. It's a special day for your family. You're going to go to court. You've got balloons. You're taking balloons to court, and you're wearing your best. And you're walking down the hallway, and all of a sudden, I've got initial hearings, so I've got a string of 6 guys in orange and flip-flops sharing that hallway with you. Do we owe something better to those users of the building? Forget me. I'll be on a folding chair with a folding table. I'll do my work. But those are the people we owe it to, the users of the building on a daily basis. And your employees, if we stay where we are and try to upgrade, we're going to sink a ton of money into technology, which we should. But it's all going to be retrofit. It's got cables. I mean, you see what we're doing now. This is an opportunity to order some of those systems in a new building that are going to benefit us for time to come in a way that's manageable, in a way that we can all use them in the appropriate way and get value out of them. So I'm here to answer any questions, not just tonight, but anytime. Most of you, I think, have my cell phone number. Call me. I'm passionate about this. I think this is an opportunity to, again, set the table for that campus to be an anchor and a cornerstone for the Martinsville Square for quite some time to come. Thank you.
I've seen your chambers, and I'm not even sure how you fit in your restroom. No offense.
Any other judges like to make a comment? And that's fine, you don't have. Okay.
Brian Williams, Morgan Superior Court 2. I've been in that courthouse since 1992 is when I got in there, and we do have a beautiful courthouse on the outside. The inside, I always said, styled in 1960s asylum decor with just plain halls, mostly boring architecture on the inside, and what looks cool was actually installed, I think, in 1996 when they did the last refit. I will just say, I knew exactly what physical plant I was going to be entering into when I ran for this office, and I generally don't complain about it. But as Judge Foley indicated, I also believe that our jurors should not be rubbing shoulders with the defendants' families. We should have a place where jurors can assemble away from all of that. They shouldn't be rubbing shoulders with witnesses, victims' families. Children shouldn't be sitting in the hall waiting on their CHINS case or child support case or adoption while we're bringing child molesters through that same hallway. We certainly don't need them walking past a splash pad outside that was thrown around for a while. Maybe we can do that when that's the admin area. I agree that it's time to do something and to build. I would kind of take issue with Judge Gray a little bit, who I usually always agree with. I think there is some room for expansion with this plan, but the reality is then we've got to go that way to the street and then the next block, which is an issue for another day. But the way this is set up, that is a possibility. So I don't think that's great concern. That I'm going to leave that to my third or fourth down the line succession. So I join in the idea that this is necessary. I believe what we've done so far is well thought out, such that I'm very happy with it. And I would ask that you support this, which I agree it is time, and it's never going to get any cheaper.
Real quick, I thought Judge Gray brought up some excellent, and to prove to my wife that I've been going to too many meetings, and I have been sitting in this, there are 2 places in the future that we can expand out on the campus. They're not renderings, they're not in any of the bots, future expansion. And we're also hoping, and Judge Foley brought up, mentioned technology, and not for sure, and you've got one judge that's very in technology and meetings via technology. We don't know how much technology will allow for smaller space. That's yet to be determined. But we do know that as we go into the future and we do get bigger, we should have more cases. But how much of those will be on-site in a room versus technology probably be determined from the state, not here in Morgan County. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. I think it would behoove, and I know it's getting a little late, again, I believe this is the historic meeting that I know I've had in my 25 years and in several years, but I was wondering if, Commander, if you would share just, you have to get the guys in there, you're in charge of security. That's this young gentleman's responsibility. And if you could just touch to the public on some of the things that you have to deal with and what you would like to see.
Absolutely. So I've been with the Sheriff's Office 22 years. Most of you know me. I've been blessed with court security under my bailiwick. And over the years, I've had to have Judge Gray yell at me a couple times where we're not real prompt to getting inmates into his courtroom when he was a judge and so forth. That building is just way past due. It's very unsafe. You've heard over the juries, that is a nightmare for security. We go back to John Myers' case, which was the Joe Behrman case. You know, we had over 100 jurors in that little building when we was first selecting that and trying to provide security, keep separation of both families, because that's always an issue. And that was just a very tough thing to do. And then, you know, breaks to, you know, we're having to take security outside of the building, trying to keep that separation, and it's just not good. I'm not gonna go into a lot of the security issues that we have because we don't want that out. But, you know, there's just, the elevator's non-functional half the time, and that causes security issues, especially when we're trying to transport inmates through. Luckily with Zoom, that's cut down inmate traffic quite a bit, but that's starting to pick back up. And just, you know, just families next to each other and victims, and that is just a nightmare for us to try to take care of. And, you know, our security has expanded over the years into this building. So court security now responds over to this building as a first responder when there's a problem here, the prosecutor's office, as well as probation. So my security staff are running from 4 different buildings throughout the downtown area until law enforcement and cars can get here because we can get here quicker. And that's picking up. Even in this building, we've had more issues this year. I know we've had at least 4 in the past month in this building by itself, and that's not even a court facility. So to get everyone back into, and I was an advocate for putting this over at the jail. Years ago, we've tried, and I've heard every reason why not to do that. And those are some good reasons, but at least to get everyone in one facility, we can police that a lot better, have security readily available for everyone, and to keep everyone a lot safer than what it is now, because it's just not. We get by, but it's gonna be a problem one day, and we're gonna wish we'd done something. I will say, this is probably my 4th or 5th. I came on about the time Brian came on the council. We've went through a jail addition. I will say that we was under budget. The county done good on that jail addition in 2010. And not only did we bond that project, but we paid that bond off, I believe, a little over a year early. So and Judge Foley was county attorney, even Rod was prior to him. But the county's been great with money, but at some point in time, you know, saving all this money, taxpayers pay taxes for services. And they don't pay it to bank it, they pay it for a service, and they need those services. And I will go into saying that also the court's efficiencies affect our jail population as well. So even outside security, the less functional the courts are, the longer we keep an inmate, the longer we gotta, more beds we have to have, and we don't want to go through that again. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but it's definitely a project I support and very much needed.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that works through the court system that would like to make a public comment?
Dakota Van Leeuwen is our Bar Association president, and she put together a letter on behalf of the Morgan County Bar Association. I know I emailed it today, late today, but she had illness and could not be here tonight, so I'm going to distribute the letter of support from her on her behalf.
To touch what the judge is passing that out, if the 160,700, in theory, everybody would go up the same proportion. It's, bless Mrs. Heacock, who taught me algebra in 8th grade, the rate would come down. So we're still looking at the final variable, the constant. If your constant is, it will come down against a higher overall assessed property taxes. So we're still looking at the $7, even if assessments go up. If everybody were to double, the same ballpark. Counsel, we've heard from many within our court system. Any questions, any comments before I open it up for public, the rest of the public to make a comment?
I want to ask, on this current plan, possibility of adding a third floor to that judicial wing, possibility of adding a third floor to this building, because when it was built 20-some years ago, I was told it was stubbed for a third floor. I think Judge Gray's comments are very, very valid, and I just hate to see us put another Band-Aid on a short-term solution. So, and then it's hard for me to visualize how much space is out here at this Bicentennial Park, but is there room? I know you got hallways coming up this new section. Can you widen that and possibly put even more courtrooms in this area right here?
Yes, and Eric and I were
I
discussing.
know anything's possible when it comes with the
Right.
price tag.
And that's what she's pointing to, is a place that Eric and I had talked for future expansion, part of the garden to the northeast. And you could also, which would create a parking issue, but we can also push back towards Mulberry, which we'd have to close Mulberry Street, but we can expand to the west.
You brought up a good point with technology. I mean, yes, we're expanding the courts, and Judge Gray's point is duly taken, but I think technology is going to be our savior in a lot of this situation.
And as far as building up, I'll yield to the architect.
So one thing I will say is about this building, the likelihood of adding a third level to this building would be very slim, if any. One of the things that in the 1990s, the building code that we all comply by changed significantly with aspects with a seismic design. If you added a third floor to this building, you would be adding a structure all the way down to the basement to just support the third floor. We just can't build on top of it. I would say that that's a pretty strong likelihood that that's what the final recommendation from that perspective would be. Patrick, there's a project up in your county where they had actually looked at shelling out some space that we were involved with as well for court space for future. It's just how much we can spend today from that point of view. One thing that was noted is, could we expand the existing building, this planned justice complex? One thing to always keep in mind is that we have specifically designed it in an approach that we can have that vehicle sally port for transporting the inmates into the building with that secure corridor, separated from the public corridor. So that's one of the things that we would need to keep in play with that. However, that does not prevent that from an example, potentially, is that in this, and I'll swing it around for you as well, but in this type of an approach, that there's going to be space on the north end of the site where there could be another courtroom added. That's 2 more courtrooms, okay? We would just have to change the connecting link from the parking lot to the main entrance. But if we added more space here, another courtroom, another admin on each level, that gets us to 8 courtrooms total, okay? And we're still able to maintain the justice lobby or the lobby for the courts, as well as a secure corridor. So that's one option that you could resolve pretty quickly, pretty easily in the future if that case would come about. To add a 3rd floor, it's not half again of what the cost to go from 2 floors to the 3rd floor, but if you shelled out the space, obviously there would be a fraction of what that would be, which would be on top of what's already planned in the overall scheme today.
When the magistrate takes the 6th courtroom, there's no place for a senior judge to work in this scheme.
I see what you're saying.
Is there anybody from the public that would like to come up and address? State your address and the mic.
My name is Janice Kistler, and I live at 180 South Columbus, and I'm sure you're aware that's one of the properties affected by this grand plan. One of the things that frustrates me most of all, and has nothing to do with my property, it has to do with where I work. And when I-69 went through, we literally had reams of information brought to the library or mailed to the library, and we provided binders and had them available, and lots of people came in and looked at those binders. This project, nothing. And nothing makes me more frustrated than someone coming in and asking, do you have anything on the proposed project that the county is working on right now for this new justice center? And I have to say, no, we don't. And I don't know where to send them to find this, so I would appreciate some kind of resolution to that so that I'm not frustrated on my job, okay? The second thing that concerns me as a member of the Indiana Genealogical Society and also being the Morgan County genealogist, I noticed that you have storage area in the lower level. That's a bad idea. Be very careful what you store down there because things happen. Floods happen. So just be very, very careful what you store there. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And she brings up a good point that we've talked. Some counties actually have an employee who coordinates their public relations. We've never put that into the budget, and we've seen the need. So we hope to start painting a better picture to the public. We're not hiding anything. And again, as Mr. Maxwell said, this is the first time he's seen it. So there's just so many rules to follow to get the ball rolling. And that's part of this, what we're doing tonight. Cecilia, please name yourself and where you live, and the mic is yours.
My name is Cecilia Kraft. I live at 11 North Jefferson Street. First of all, to follow up on Janice Kistler's comment about storage. Some of you may know that the flood ruined the tenants' records in the basement at Heather Heights. That was a federal violation. Those tenants were never properly recompensed. So please take our warning about basement storage very seriously. Some of you have made statements which I contest. For example, everyone here agrees. No, I don't agree. Okay? So don't assume you know what everyone in the room thinks. I realize that there are needs for change. However, I share Kelly's concern about the expenditures. I share Jason's concerns about the expenditures. I do not concur with Judge Foley, although he made many excellent points. I do not concur with his let's go whole hog on this. No, I don't think that the widow in Adams Township should have to pay for 80 years from now when we need 11 courts. So I am not in favor of that whole hog approach. I am in favor of stage by stage planning. I think you need to scale things back. I think you're spending too much money. I certainly think that technology will decrease the need for space. I remember when Judge Hanson said, we're getting rid of all the books on the 3rd floor. And he did. And I took them to my house, all the hard copies, because he wanted everything on computer. And it's certainly far more efficient to have everything on computer. Now, I certainly agree that there should be a separation of the witnesses, the family members. And I will conclude with my own story on that. I was involved in a trial. It was a separation of witnesses. Judge Gray was the judge. Tammy was the bailiff. And one of the prosecution's witnesses, I was defense attorney, talked to children in the hallway. She knew she wasn't supposed to do it. She did it anyway. Tammy can't be everywhere. She reported it to the judge. So I definitely agree that you have a need for different hallways and for separate spaces for jury members, family members, defendant members, et cetera. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to come forward? Mr. Mayor.
Kenny Costin, 115 Byron Boulevard, and you have a lot on your plate. The council, the commissioners, you've done a fantastic job researching everything, looking at your options, and I applaud you for that. On behalf of the city, I thank you for staying in Martinsville. A lot of people don't realize that you had the opportunity to go somewhere else out of Martinsville, and we're thankful you stayed here. The economic impact that the courts, the county offices have on our downtown, if you were not here, it would be very devastating. So even though you're looking at possibly more growth, less growth, refurbishing or redoing your drawings, I think that what Eric's presented looks marvelous, but thank you for staying in Martinsville. And that's a key for us as a city. Now, on a personal note, I had the opportunity a few months ago to be a juror in Judge Williams' court. I thought being mayor, well, they won't keep me, they'll let me off. Nope, I was with the judge for 3 days. Yeah, I was there 3 days. But I can attest, it's very awkward when you go out as a juror and you're in that hallway and there's the plaintiffs and defendants and you're going to the bathrooms together. They do a great job trying to keep you from that situation, but they cannot do it. So you do need a new facility, and I applaud you for looking at it. Thank you.
Anybody else like to come up and talk? Seeing none, council, do you have any final questions, comments, concerns? A whole list of them, right? I know, it's a lot. And I'm privy to have had several meetings to Jason to digest this over time. And the only thing I can tell
Jason, and to the Jasons out there that go, well, this is too much in one, it is a lot in one night. And because of rules and things, we couldn't meet repeatedly all together, and it wouldn't have been efficient. With that, the importance of tonight was to frame the situation, to show a case that now's the time to start. I don't believe we can wait any longer. We've kicked this can down way too long. The judge made one point that I technically hadn't even thought. We may be too conservative. Again, we may not be spending enough. Scary. I can make an argument that interest rates are going to go up. Someone else could say that they're going to go back down. Let the debate begin. We didn't really touch upon the Toner building a whole lot, the J.C. Penney building, or the issues that we have there, and our responsibility to our employees there. Please know that what we've presented today is not the final product. It's just a place to start, to refine. And with that, Mr. Commissioner, do you have any comments? Well, I need a motion from a commissioner for the commissioners to affirm and move forward. Affirmation to affirm and go forward to proceed with this project. And I will make a second. So all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank
Adam,
you.
I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Collier. I think we've made good points here tonight that past leaders in our community have had to make some hard decisions. Sadly, we are those leaders today that are going to have to make some hard decisions. And we have a responsibility to our constituents to keep our county in a position to provide safe work environments for our employees. And quite honestly, I feel we've let this go on far too long. And unfortunately, some procrastination of our former leaders has resulted in this higher price tag of today. But it is where we are, and we have to make decisions. And I, for one, feel that a consent to proceed would be in our best interest right now. And so, although I can't make the motion, I look for a motion to give the commissioners the consent to proceed on the next bot project.
Well, I think
not
it has to
making
be
a
done,
motion.
so I'll make the motion for us to proceed on the next bot project.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm sorry, Vicki, did you have something to say?
I just wanted to say, I don't want to make the motion, but we talked about, people in leadership in the past haven't looked enough forward. But I think as a result of them stalling, we have lived in a good county and had fair tax rates. And it's been an enjoyable, affordable place to live here. And I'm not ashamed of that. Chet Baston wouldn't be ashamed of that. But I think that we're at that threshold. We've had change. Thank you to the investors in our Martinsville. If you like it or not, I-69 is going to change us. Our county's growing. We are going to get those homes, more taxes. And in all this works, all these meetings, I can honestly say from where I sit in this chair, we've done our best. I appreciate what Judge Gray says about we're not planning for enough space, but if you'll assure me that that space, that ground for expansion for other courts in the future is out there, I'm all for this. We've done our best. We've brought some of the best financial people in. Dan Baston has spent endless hours on facts and figures, how we can pay for this, help offset some stuff. So if we're going to go through it, we couldn't be any more prepared. We have a motion on the floor.
Yes.
I am in favor of proceeding, but I would never approve these dollar amounts. So if you're looking for an approval to move forward, to continue the process as your things will flexibly change, I would vote to go forward. But when it comes down, if these are the dollar amounts, I would vote no.
Do you mind expanding on what you would change or what you would eliminate?
I would reduce the scope and size of that initial justice building at least, unfortunately. I definitely think you need to have some space, but the price tag is astronomical, in my opinion, given the current climate. And I don't think we even have started to grasp what our budget is going to look like going into next year and the increased costs to regular operational budgets for every county department.
So Kelly, I just want to make sure, because I really respect what you do as your daytime job, and I think that you're a lot better at this than I am, and I'm the junior member up here. So, no, I'm serious. So you're saying that you feel like we need to grow, and you feel like we need to say yes to expansion, but you are worried about the price tag and the size of the building, even after what Judge Gray said.
So do you propose just using this same blueprint and just reducing square footage, meaning every?
I would say that you got to go back and look at what you, I mean, if it was me, I mean, I'm not the decision maker. The commissioners are the decision maker. We're the voting body of whether we're going to approve this dollar amount.
Just seen this tonight for the first time, and we've not had discussion amongst ourselves.
There hasn't been a lot of time to proceed with these type of, I mean, to just be presented with dollar amounts tonight and then be asked to make a vote to proceed with, I mean, when I'm adding this up, I think, what are we talking about? $65 million? And I'm giving it tonight and then say vote yes to proceed on $65 million that's going to impact the taxpayer? I don't know. Present it tonight. Give me a month. Come back and let's, I mean, it just seems like something that should have been discussed with the council or brought to us and given us time to process these numbers and to look at it. Maybe have, discussions with individuals ourselves. That's just, I'm just one person out of all of you.
Well, and that's what I was kind of wondering is, to proceed, what does that involve? That's what it's kind of an ambiguous thing, giving you permission to proceed, but proceed with what? With this exact thing, with this exact dollar amount? What's going to change? What could change? I don't know by saying proceed if I'm saying, go ahead, spend whatever this total amount is here and whatever you do. I mean, to be honest with you, after what I've heard, I'm looking at this seating terrace, formal garden. It's as big as a Justice Annex. That's a waste of space. On this drawing right here, that whole area, is that not the same size as that?
It's not the scale.
It looks pretty big in both these pictures I have.
It's a quarter of a block.
Yeah. And if they're saying we're going to need another courthouse, do it now. Yeah, that costs more money, but it might cost more money now, but if you're saying things keep going up, it's going to cost us even more in 10 years if we have to add another one. So those are things, I mean, I'd rather have the usable space now than a garden that, maybe no one's going to use. People walk into their cars in, that's about it.
And that's why it's important to proceed to work these out. I can't reduce the dollar amount and increase the space. I don't have to ask Eric or financial to know that. But we need to proceed. And now that this has been a publicly presented meeting, now we can talk about it. Now we can do a better job of painting the picture so, and that's what I've had, I want people to know. I value Kelly's opinion. I value your opinion.
And that's all I want to know is by proceed, what am I giving you permission? Am I saying?
You're not bonding this tonight, no. You are not writing me a paycheck, you are not, but now we go from this conceptual, which this is much more conceptualized, the Justice Center than the courthouse or, those are great big blocks. We still may move the Board of Health, we may move the treasurer downstairs, upstairs, we may move, we're just guessing there. These we fine-tuned and brought in and got some numbers. If the numbers are too big, then we may have to shrink it down. If we feel that we need more space, then we may have to go out and figure out how to come up with more money. But to proceed, we have to have direction. Otherwise, Eric goes home and he's done, gentlemen are done, and I'm done. And Josh brings up a point. By proceeding tonight, we are strongly coming to a court campus, realizing that the old courthouse is beyond money-wise being able to be a functional court facility going forward.
That I totally agree.
And that's why tonight we proceed. The council, as the fiscal body, can stop the commissioners at any time until you give me the money. Kelly made that point on the last bond issue. She's never told me that. So, but we have, commissioners have to have direction that we can proceed with our team to start fine tuning.
So you're wanting agreement that we think that we need to go just to Bot 2 phase, that we need to look at just the next step. That's what you're looking for a collective agreement on.
Right. Realizing, and to be frank and totally upfront and honest, I mean, we got phase 1 going. It makes sense to roll phase 2. Fine tuning phase 2, Bot 2, on square footage, cost. We'll be spending many meetings together. But we got the first phase bot rolling. It's time to roll into 2. And I think interest rates are gonna go up, and the longer we fine tune, the more it's gonna cost. And that's my opinion. Madam, there's been a motion. I don't think you got a second yet.
Yeah. We got kind of a second.
Once we second, you got to work real fast if you want to get those done real fast.
Yeah.
You got to work real hard now.
Yeah, to get that second.
Point. We are not talking the numbers, the finance tonight. I mean, as they've said, we're not working on any ordinance or bonds or anything like that right now. It's just a consent to the commissioners to kind of fine tune this. So we do have a motion by Commissioner Green with a consent to move to proceed.
Put it to Commissioner Green.
Mm-hmm. Oh, not Commissioner. I'm sorry, Councilwoman
over,
Green.
Brian.
Sorry. Yeah. It's getting late, folks.
Yeah.
She's tired.
Yeah. I yield.
Environment thing.
Yeah.
I'll make the second to proceed, but if it comes back with this dollar amount, I would vote no.
Thank
But
you,
I want
Kelly.
to go forward because we do need to do something.
And, you know, in further discussion with Kelly and Jason and the payback, I mean, I do this every day. Interest rates are going up. It's the payback. Because if you would survey every taxpayer in Morgan County and say, hey, are you willing to share your share of the load of this to make this happen? That's the payback. Are we willing to ask them to step up in an environment where, you know, you're paying $5.25 and Jason and I are paying $6, and it's going to $8 probably by the end of the summer on our fuel? It is an ugly time. We all agree up here that there's a need, and you hit it on the head. There's a need. There's absolutely a need. But if we push forward to move forward, but also look at ways of funding this thing and ways of you know, different ways of doing things, so it's not such a huge burden on the taxpayers in our county, I would agree with that. We have a second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. You have a full consent to proceed from your council.
One last note before I let her clock off the hour. And to the citizens, we are looking at funding not necessarily directly from property taxes. I don't want to confuse anybody. We're very blessed. Mr. Baston's got family up from Texas. That's why he snuck out. They're at a family retreat, and so I told him to go. But we are working to keep your property taxes low and get this funded. That the meeting. I'd like to thank the public for coming, everyone that spoke, those that didn't speak but showed some support, whether for or against, but support of the system, the democracy that we live in. Thank you and have a safe evening.
Hey, motion, Brian.
Adjourn, we have to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Commissioner, will you make a motion to? Yeah. I'll second, unless there was one up here.
Council to adjourn.
Yeah.
Makes a motion, we adjourn.
That,
Troy
All those in
Sprinkle,
favor?
seconds.
Aye.
Aye.